Assalamu alaikum. Welcome everyone to this latest edition of the Austin Muslims podcast. As usual, I'm excited to share the latest conversation with you. This is with Ayaan Moledina, who's running for Round Rock School Board. In this conversation, a few things stuck out to me. One is that Ayaan has a very compelling platform. He speaks in really convincing terms about issues like mental health, creating an inclusive environment, uh, better representing students from across different economic backgrounds. The Round Rock School District is one that's typically associated with being at a higher income level. There's lots of tech companies here. This is one of the suburbs of Austin. Now, despite that, there's also a significant amount of poverty. There have been ICE raids that have affected students over here. And Ayaan is someone who speaks in very compelling ways about all these issues that I frequently don't hear that much from other folks on the Round Rock School Board. A second thing that hit me from talking to Ayaan is that he's got a great deal of phenomenal experience. He speaks about the years he spent in educational advocacy, including lobbying on both a state level and even at the federal level. He references conversations and meetings he's had with Senator John Cornyn over the course of our chat. Another thing that stuck out to me is that he has a really unique perspective. Not only is he Desi, aka South Asian, in a district that has a significant South Asian population, he's also Muslim. And when I was talking to him, the experience he had, the maturity with which he speaks, I estimated rather that he's maybe someone who's in his mid-20s. But when I asked him his age, he's only 17 years old. So he's someone who has recently been a student, which again is an important perspective to have on a school board. And this is a really important school district. It's one that has about, I think, more than 45,000 students, close to 60 schools. Obviously, one of the suburbs in one of the largest cities in America. I think Austin's the 11th largest city that we have here. So this is a very consequential seat. And this is someone who's going to bring not only a great degree of experience, he has a great platform, and he brings some unique perspective that would help better round out our school board. I want you to take some actions away from this as well. One is that if you're in Round Rock, and when I say Round Rock School District, this also includes parts of Austin and Cedar Park, go and vote for Ayaan, as well as doing research on other down ballot candidates. The sexy races on top for senator and other national are getting more coverage. They attract a lot of votes, but people often skip votes that are down ballot, including for a school district. So don't do that. If you're here, look all the way down the ballot and vote for Ayaan and other folks who you like on a local and municipal level. Tell others to do the same. And if you're able to consider financially contributing to the campaign, even $5 makes a big difference. I've been involved in political campaigns for a while, and local campaigns in particular don't get very much support, but it's essential to support them. I mean, first and foremost, Ayaan is someone who I think will, no matter what happens in the future, this is probably someone whose political ascendance and descendants will follow. So you're investing early in someone like him who's very talented and has the propensity to make a significant impact. In addition to that, just investing in local campaigns is money that goes into our communities. It helps build up the next generation of people who will run campaigns and build movements. So I'm a big advocate of contributing, even if it's just $1 to local campaigns. Now, one other thing that I've done in this conversation with Ayaan, and I think this is the first one I'm releasing, and I'd like to release a full episode about why I'm doing this at another point. For the time being, though, if you stick around until the end of the episode, you will get an Urdu version of our conversation. And this isn't some AI generated stuff. This is Ayaan and I speaking in Urdu, which is obviously the national language of one of the national languages, or the main national language rather, in Pakistan. It's a heritage language for me. I'm someone who believes it's really important for folks to maintain their heritage languages, and not only maintain them, but actively use them. And this is my tiny attempt to create more opportunities selfishly for myself to practice Urdu, but also to create new materials in this language that is so important for me, and that I believe strongly in maintaining and growing. So whether you speak Urdu or not, stick around towards the end of it. I will tell you now that my Urdu is not the best. I've been here in the US 30 years, and it's predictably deteriorated. I try my best to maintain it and grow it, but there's limits to that. And oftentimes for the people who I'll be interviewing, Ayan wasn't, by the way, but other folks who I've talked about this, they're somewhat reluctant. They say, look, I don't know, my Urdu isn't the best, but I still say, hey, please, look, we don't have to be really eloquent speakers of our heritage languages to maintain them. Let's just go through the effort. Let's decrease our self-consciousness and just go through the effort of putting ourselves out there by speaking actively in our language and creating new materials that celebrate and just put our languages back into active use. So again, I want to speak about this more extensively later, but I'm so happy that Ayan, who has an impressive command of Urdu. In particular, I'll note numbers. I am someone who is really bad with Urdu numbers. This is my kids, like it's a little kids thing that I use to practice Urdu numbers, and you will hear him rattle off stats in Urdu very fluently. Now, all that said, I make mistakes in my Urdu, and then, like I said earlier, my Urdu is not the best, and the point of this isn't that I'm speaking perfect Urdu or that my guests are, is that we are simply putting it back into active use. So, again, questions, comments, always happy to get your feedback. So please share that with me directly, and I anticipate that you'll find some value in listening in on this conversation with Ayan and I. Enjoy. Assalamualaikum, Ayan. Thanks for joining me. How are you doing today?
Walaikum salam. Thank you for having me. I'm good.
I heard you're running for Round Rock School Board.
I am. It's a big district. It's a big job. It's a district that I went through, and I'm really excited to run this campaign.
Let's start with that. I want to hear more about your story and why are you running?
Public education is a big passion of mine. I got started in political advocacy and legislative work about 7 years ago. A lot of it started because I was very passionate about mental health and the struggles that I was having. And I knew that there were a lot of systems in place that were not supporting me in the best way possible. And I knew that I was not the only one. I knew that there were many other students being failed as well. And I knew that the best way to improve those systems was to do it from the inside. And so I started getting involved in various organizations. I got involved working in the state legislature. I got a job working for the US Congress. I started meeting various people that connected me to different people. And just from there, it's kind of all a blur of how I got here. It's been a really, really incredible journey. And I'm so grateful that I've been able to come this far. And I'm proud of all the people that I've been able to meet. But I've learned from so many different people and so many different stories when I get to go out and talk to parents, talk to students, and understand how we all have so many different experiences that are different, yet they're also intertwined at a certain level. And Round Rock ISD has this reputation of being, a suburban wealthy district. But in reality, once I got to know more of the students, once I got to go out into the parts of the district that many people don't go into, I hear from students that are sleeping on the floor because their parents can't afford a bed for them, can't afford things like fast food, can't afford to have a pet. And these are things that we don't often talk about and that many people in the district, including its leadership, don't fully have a grasp on. And so, for all those reasons, I knew that I had to run. I knew that we had never had a Muslim, we have never had a South Asian on the school board. And those are really important perspectives given how large of a South Asian population we have in the district and a Muslim population. And so, I wanted to make sure that we're not counting on other people to represent us, but that our voices directly are represented on the board. This is a district of almost 50,000 students, hundreds of thousands of voters, 59 campuses, over 3,000 teachers and employees.
Wow.
It is a big district, and I want to make sure that our voices are accurately represented in that.
No, that's fantastic. A lot of people don't know what a school board does. So what is it exactly that a school board does, and what would your role be as someone who's running for that board?
Yeah, you're right. I think a lot of people underestimate the role that school boards play, or they don't even know about it at all. But it is the most basic and the closest to home governing board that there can be. And it is the one that will make decisions that affect your everyday lives. First of all, for people who say that, well, I don't have kids in the school system, it still affects you because your school board is the one that sets your property taxes. And so that is something that gets a lot of people to listen more closely. And also, if you do have kids in the school system, the school board is the one deciding a lot of the things that happen in the schools about what schools are we closing, what schools are we building, what are the new programs that we're bringing into the district? Are we bringing in new mental health curriculum? Are we bringing in new mental health programs? Are we bringing in more DEI programs? You know, things that a lot of people at the state and federal level aren't able to do as easily to affect our daily lives, right? If we want to bring in a new DEI director or a new DEI program that someone puts forward, it's going to be very hard for the state legislature or Congress to be able to do that. But the school board can easily bring that into your school district and affect your students' lives. And so whenever you see that maybe there's an anti-bullying policy that you want in place, Round Rock ISD recently implemented an identity-based bullying policy because we know that many students are being bullied based on their religion, based on their race, based on any other identity factors. And so those are things that the school district can do to prevent bullying, to handle cases of bullying. There are many things that the state legislature requires that school boards do. And so whenever there is a new purchase of books for school libraries, the school board is the one who decides whether to approve that list or not. And whenever there is a grievance that parents may file with the district of something that they feel that they were wronged by, whether it's by a teacher, a school principal, someone in the district, they can file a grievance and there will be a hearing before the school board. So these trustees are really your representatives on the school board at the school district, and they're the ones who are going to help keep the school district accountable on your behalf. And so it's really important that you understand what they do and have a good relationship with them, because if you see something that's happening in your child's school, chances are that they have the ability to talk to someone in the district, even if it's not passing a policy, they have the ability to talk to someone in the district and help get that resolved in the right way possible. And at the end of the day, the superintendent, the person who's in charge of the entire district, reports to the school board. And so he or she reports to the people. And so that is also a very important factor in this.
What is the school board comprised of today? How many members are there? We're trying to educate folks on the basics.
Sure. So every district has a different number of trustees. For Round Rock ISD, we have 7 trustees, and they are all at-large positions. And so they are not divided into individual districts.
Interesting.
Every trustee represents the entire whole of Round Rock ISD. Whereas if you go to Austin ISD, they have individual districts. And so you have folks that will represent Northwest Austin, you'll have folks that represent Southwest Austin, and then on top of that, you will have at-large positions that represent the whole district as well. So they have a hybrid of the two. But for Round Rock ISD, they're all at-large. And right now, we have at least one trustee from each learning community. And a learning community is all the elementary schools that feed into one middle school, and then the middle schools that feed into one high school. And so that is the learning community. So you'll have Westwood High School, for example, that has Canyon Vista Middle School and Grisham Middle School that feed into it. And then under that, you'll have Kathy Caraway Elementary School and Spicewood Elementary School and all these elementary schools that feed into the middle school. So that's all under the Westwood Learning Community. And then you'll have the Round Rock Learning Community that has the middle schools and elementary schools that feed into Round Rock High School. So that's important because we want to make sure that every part of the district is covered. So right now there is a representative from each learning community on the school board, which is important, especially if there are not single member districts, that they're all at large. And right now the makeup of the board is we have one African American, we have one Hispanic American, and we have one Asian American, and then the other 4 are white. And so there is, I definitely think there is a lack of diversity has gotten better over the years. We had our first Black woman who was on the board who I helped elect in 2022. And that was a very important milestone. But again, our district is 22% Asian and big portion of that is South Asian, and we've never had a South
Hmm.
Asian trustee. Like, for example, the side of the district that I'm on, you go to my middle school, my elementary school, my high school, the vast majority of students at those schools are South Asian. And so there is that big population, especially now when we're seeing so much Islamophobia, xenophobia, and that on the rise given the level of animosity at the state and federal level. It's really
Hmm.
important that at the local level we have someone who's going to stand up and represent those communities, because there's so many important issues, whether it's immigration enforcement, whether it's religious freedom, and those are things that only we as minorities can understand, right? Because it is our community being affected by this. You know, I go to my mosque and I see people who I've known for years who are not there anymore because they've been taken into custody by immigration
Mm.
enforcement. And that's not something that someone else outside of our community is going to be able to relate to. And I know that that's happened to many parents and many students in Round Rock ISD. And I get those reports, but no one's going to be able to represent those students the way that I'm going to be able to. And then you have state law that requires the 10 commandments to be put up in every
Yeah.
classroom, right? And putting forward this Christian nationalist idea of education. And even, especially then, it's more important to have religious minorities like Muslims to be on the board to push back against that and say, we're a big part of this district. The state law may require us to do this, and we're going to push back against that as much as we can, but we're still going to make sure that there are programs in place, that there are policies in place that make sure that people of all religions, whether it's Judaism, Islam, Buddhism, Sikhism, they're all represented in this diverse district. And so those are all things that are under the purview of the school district. And I really want folks to understand how important it is that no matter whether you have students in the district or not, this board has incredible impacts on other families. It has incredible impacts on you. And it's important to send a message to people at higher levels of government that we have our community and we're going to protect it at all costs.
Great summary. And you've said a lot of what needs to be done. Why are you uniquely qualified to accomplish these things?
So I went through the school district for 9 years, and I went through the district for kindergarten through eighth grade. And after that, in eighth grade, I had 4 out of my 7 teachers resign in the middle of the year. And it was because they were not being paid. They were overworked and they were just being treated terribly by the system. And so I knew that I had to advocate for public education more. So I did that. And my parents also wanted me to have better access to what they viewed as a better education, right? Where my teachers wouldn't be resigning. So I got sent to a private school for 2 years and it was not any better. There was a lot of racism. There was a lot of policies in place that didn't support me as a person. And so
Mm.
after that, I realized that public schools are where I felt most safe and most supported. And even if I had teachers that resigned, the answer is not for students to leave the district. The answer is for us to fully fund our public schools to make sure that those teachers don't have to leave. So I feel like I bring a unique perspective of having gone to public schools for most of my educational career, briefly leaving for private schools and seeing that it is not the answer at all, and then coming back to help advocate for public schools. And that's why I've been doing public education work for the past 7 years. And so I help lead an education policy organization that is statewide. And every couple weeks, I'm in Washington, D.C., advocating for more public education funding. I'm at the state capitol during legislative session, advocating for public education funding. And so we had this ginormous school voucher program that was recently
Yeah,
implemented,
I was going to ask you about
taking,
that.
yeah, taking $1 billion out of our public schools and putting into private schools that a lot of times discriminate based on race, religion,
Hmm.
ethnicity, sexual orientation, whatever it may be. And so that is a big concern of mine. And I have been on the front lines of that, advocating against that. I took a big group of students to Washington, D.C. to advocate against the federal voucher program that was actually spearheaded by our senator. Senator Ted Cruz was the one who wrote that bill to implement that program. And I knew that Texas student voices were needed to help bring that, because that is a group that is not often heard from. And so I seek to get so many more people involved in these issues. And that's what I do on a day-to-day basis at all levels of government. And I think that public education is one of those things that people think is non-controversial, but recently it has become more controversial. I remember a couple weeks ago when I took a group of about 12 students to DC to advocate for against the voucher program and for more public education funding. We met with Senator John Cornyn,
Yeah.
and he asked us, well, why are you here? What are you doing? And we said, well, we're here advocating for public education. And he said, well, who could possibly be against that? And we said,
He
well,
should
you'd be
know. Yeah.
surprised. Yeah, you should know. You'd be surprised. And so that was a kind of a light bulb moment for many of the students of like these people don't even know that this is something that's being attacked on our local communities. And that's why our voices are needed now more than ever. And then there's so many different things that also affect our public schools. There was a big conversation wherein President Trump was pushing forward the One Big Beautiful Bill and how there were a lot of Medicaid cuts that were included in it. People didn't realize that when you cut Medicaid, you're also cutting school-based health services, which a lot of times are funded by Medicaid. And
No
so
idea.
right. Many people don't know about that. And so there is a big impact on students. And then also when you're cutting SNAP and Medicaid as well, you're of course impacting the ability of students to show up to schools and understand how they can get through class, right? We don't want students to be learning on an empty stomach. And so those are all different things that require action at all levels of government. And when you have the state and federal government making decisions about our local education, I think it's really important that we have someone who is familiar with the policy levels that are going on that can then help advocate and protect the community at the local level, right? Because if I'm on the school board and the voucher program or the 10 Commandments law is coming or the anti-DEI bill is coming into effect and nobody knows like the specific provisions of it as well, but I was there when they wrote the law, right? And I understand what was actually put into law, what amendments were made, then I can help make sure that we're implementing it in the right way. Because what I have seen is that the district oftentimes over implements, if that makes sense. So there was a bill that banned all sorts of Black student unions and DEI affinity groups in schools. And my organization was the one that filed the lawsuit against the state of Texas to
Which
take down
organization is
that
that,
law.
by the way?
It's called Students Engaged in Advancing Texas, SEAT. And so
Okay.
it's a statewide
Cool.
organization made up of over 400 students across the state that help advocate for public education. So the case was called Seat v. Paxton, and we sued the state of Texas to make sure that they were not implementing this law because we knew it was unconstitutional. It violated the free expression clause and the establishment clause. And so we knew that this was something that a lot of people would be passionate about, and we sued, and we got 3 of the largest school districts in the state to receive a preliminary injunction: Houston ISD, Plano ISD, and the third one is slipping my mind right now. But 3 of the largest school districts in the state did not have to implement this because the court found that it was unconstitutional. So anyways, Round Rock ISD still had to implement it. And what I found was that they were also removing certain mental health and psychology clubs. And that was really concerning to me because there was a provision in the bill that said like teachers cannot ask students about mental health. They can't ask them, hey, how are you doing? What's your mental health like? They can't do that without parental consent. Yeah, it is very concerning. So the district took that as, well, now we can't have any mental health clubs as well. And that was not something that Round Rock ISD interpreted as well. That was many districts interpreted it that way. But in reality, that is not what the law said. And I know that because I spoke with the bill's author, who I disagree with on many things, but they told me that this is not something that they wanted to happen. And so that's, again, an example of why it's important to have someone on the board who understands that perspective and who comes from that background of where these laws are being made. And so I think that number 1, it's about the policy experience that I bring. Number 2, it's about the identity experience. Number 3, it's about someone who's been through school in this decade, because at the end of the day, I mean, it sounds so simple, right? But at the end of the day, education pre-pandemic and post-pandemic is so vastly different.
Yeah.
And when you have a lot of these trustees who haven't been in public schools in several decades, they bring a different perspective that is oftentimes needed. Of course, but
Hmm.
they're still leaving out a different perspective, which is that of someone who has been through this district and this district
Sure.
recently, because I'm going to understand the challenges that students are facing nowadays. And as a young person going into schools, there are going to be students that open up to me in ways that they're not going to open up to someone who's much older and who doesn't look like them. For
Yeah.
example, I went into a Title I school, and a Title I school is a school that has 40% or more of the students on that campus who are on free or reduced lunch. So they're very low income students. And so I went to a Title I school in the district, and we have many of them. We have 17 out of our 59 campuses are Title I. And I went to one of them, and I'm on the board of their PTA. And we were handing out popsicles for a fundraiser that the students had done to raise money for their campus. We were handing out popsicles as kind of a reward. And I had one student come up to me and he said, my friend over there, he wants a popsicle, but he doesn't want to come get it from you. And I said, okay. So I take the popsicle and I go sit down next to that kid and I give it to him and I say, why don't you want to come get it from me? I'm not going to bite. And he said, yeah, I don't really want to talk about it, this, that, and the other. And I said, well, how old are you? He said, 13. And I said, well, I'm not that much older than you. You can tell me. And so after I told him that, he did open up and he told me how his parents were divorced. He told me how he was sleeping on the floor. Told me how he wasn't able to hang out with his friends as much anymore. He told me about all of these personal struggles that he was going through that on the outside you wouldn't be able to see, and that I don't think he would have opened up to anybody else. And so I talked to him for a little bit and I wasn't able to solve his problems. I wasn't able to give him any, concrete answers, but I was able to listen, which is more than clearly he had gotten before. And I had the assistant principal come up to me afterwards and say, he's a really good kid, but he just needs someone to come mentor him. Would you be willing to come in once a week and talk with him and just be with him? And I said, absolutely. And so from there, I've been able to have those conversations and mentor him through the ups and downs. There have been, there's been challenges with students like that. And that's completely understandable. And my role is to help him understand that he has a future, because a lot of times these students are being told that they have to stick inside this box, that they're only going to
Hmm.
have these certain opportunities. I've had parents reach out and say, my low income student at this school, at this Title I school, was told, you can only go into these professions, or you can join the military, or you can go into this
Wow.
career. And I've had so many parents reach out to me and tell me that. And it is something that I didn't even know, right? That they were being told this. And so that is another part of this, is that I feel like I can connect with parents at a different level as well, because they know that I come from a similar background as their students. And the last thing that I'll say that I didn't get to touch on earlier is my favorite thing about being on, or that hopefully being on the school board, is to be able to put these ideas that many of us have had into a reality. There are other school districts in the state that have done this thing where, for Muslim students who are fasting, they will create a packed lunch where you can take it home and have it for iftar, rather than having it
Wow.
during the day, right? Something so
Yeah.
simple. It doesn't require them to make any more food. It doesn't require them to do any of that. It's the same food, just packaging it, keeping it safe so that the students can take it home and eat it at home, in case they can't afford to buy their own iftar, in case they just don't, if their parents don't have the ability to make food, then they have this food from school and they're not losing out on that food that they would normally receive during
Yeah.
lunch at school. And that's something that I want to bring to Round Rock ISD. I think that's something super simple and super, super supportive of all students, right? And something that I think can be really impactful. So different things like that are honestly going to, I feel like, make students feel more welcome and supported in their schools, because a lot of times we have teachers and administrators who don't quite understand what's happening. Why is the student not going to lunch? Why is the student not eating? But if we have these programs in place, it makes it a part of the routine, that this is what's happening. It makes it a part of the institution, that this is a normal occurrence. So yeah.
Told Masha, you've done a lot of great work and you seem very uniquely suited to take on this sort of a seat and bring that important perspective and experience that you've had to the Round Rock ISD. What are the best ways for people to support you?
The biggest thing, of course, is vote. So tell all your
Yeah.
friends who live inside Round Rock ISD to vote. Early voting starts on October 19th. It will go
Okay.
through October 30th. Election day is November 3rd. People need to know that Round Rock ISD is a very big district. It encompasses all of Northwest Austin. So I don't live in Round Rock, actually. I live in Austin. I've lived in Austin my whole life. And that is something that many people forget is like Round Rock ISD. It's not just Round Rock. No, it actually includes parts of Cedar Park, parts of Austin, and Round Rock. And so it covers parts of Travis County and Williamson County. And so it is really weird the way the district is drawn, but see what district you're living in. If you live in Northwest Austin, you may be living in Round Rock ISD. So chances are that you have some friends who live in the area. Tell them to vote. It is a nonpartisan race. And so, I am a progressive candidate and people know that, but the normal voter would not know that based on just looking at my name. And so on the ballot, it's not going to say what party I'm affiliated with. So my job before election day is to educate via digital ads, via block walking, via mailing. I need to educate voters on what's important to me, my policy platform, that I'm the progressive, but I can only do that with funds. And I my least favorite part of campaigning is asking for donations, but every dollar counts, whether it's $5, $10, $25, it all adds up. And so Ayan for RRISD.com is the best place where folks can chip in.
Final question I'd like to ask is, tell me about a piece of art that inspires you. Creativity is such an important part of our lives, and I like to hear about what gets other people inspired.
Yeah, there was a poem written by Rumi, and it was about, and I don't remember it word for word or the name that I should know, but I've read it many times over the years, and it was about emotions, and it was about understanding that so when someone comes over to your house, they are a guest in your house and you treat them however you would treat a normal guest, whether you like them or not. They're coming into your house and you're going to treat them with respect and you're going to understand them. And it's the same with emotions. If there's an emotion coming into your head, whether it's anger, whether it's happiness, whether it's joy, whether it's sadness, you need to understand it. You need to look at it objectively, and it'll leave when it'll leave. You can't try and kick the guest out because oftentimes that's going to backfire and not work well, right? It's going to agitate the guest more and make them not want to leave. And so you have to understand, well, how can I positively deal with this guest? And that's been something that has been really important to me because emotions are very hard to handle and it takes a lot of practice. But as someone, like I said, whose mental health has gone up and down, who's struggled with mental health, and that's a very important topic to me. That's something that I've been working on for several years is how do I handle these emotions that a lot of times I don't control that come into my head, right? They come into my home, into my living space, and now it's my job to see how I will deal with that. So that's a very special piece that I think is my favorite piece of art.
Yeah, it's beautiful. If you can find a link to it, I'd love to include that. And obviously, I'm a big Rumi fan. I don't know where my hand goes. There we go. My son's also named Rumi.
Oh, very cool.
Well, Ayan, it's been wonderful talking to you. Learned a lot about your campaign. Excited, mashallah, about you being out there, putting your experience and yourself on the line. It's a big deal to run, and there's a lot of associated challenges and risks. So appreciate you doing that out there. And inshallah, looking forward to having you on there again after you win and talking about what you'll be working on.
Inshallah. Thank you so much. It was great talking to you.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम, खुश आमदीद ख़वातीन हज़रात इस उर्दू हिस्से में हमारे इंटरव्यू का। तो ऑब्वियसली मैं बात कर रहा हूँ अयान साहब से। वो यहाँ पे राउंड रॉक ISD की इंतख़ाबात में दखल दे रहे हैं। बहुत इनका बहुत अच्छा प्लेटफॉर्म है, बहुत ज़रूरत है इन जैसे लोगों को इलेक्शंस में दखल देने का। तो इस इंटरव्यू में इनको बस थोड़े से सवाल पूछे थे इनके अपने बारे में, इलेक्शन के बारे में, और फिर कैसे इन्होंने उर्दू को जारी रखा है। तो उसके साथ शुरू करते हैं। अयान, आप बताएं कि आप कौन हैं और आप क्यों राउंड रॉक ISD के इलेक्शंस में हिस्सा ले रहे हैं।
जी, अस्सलाम वालेकुम। मैं इधर ऑस्टिन में मेरे पूरी ज़िंदगी के लिए रहा हूँ और ये जो राउंड रॉक ISD स्कूल्स हैं, मैं उसमें 9 साल के लिए गया था और मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगा। बहुत अच्छे दोस्त थे, बहुत अच्छे टीचर्स थे, बहुत अच्छी कम्युनिटी थी। फिर मैं उधर से निकला 2 साल के लिए प्राइवेट स्कूल जाने के लिए और मुझे बिल्कुल भी अच्छा नहीं लगा। बिल्कुल भी नहीं। तो मैं सोचा कि यार ये तो पब्लिक स्कूल्स तो बेहतर हैं, लेकिन उनको तो गवर्नमेंट से पैसे नहीं मिलते हैं और टीचर्स को भी सैलरी नहीं मिलती है और रिसोर्सेज नहीं मिलती हैं। तो अभी क्या करें? तो मैं ये इस काम शुरू करने किया और मैं कैपिटल गया, वाशिंगटन DC गया और लोगों से मिला कि बोलने के लिए कि हमको ज़्यादा पैसे डालने चाहिए पब्लिक स्कूल्स में, क्योंकि हम नहीं डालेंगे तो हमारे जो बिल्कुल नीचे वाले बच्चे हैं, जिसके पास कोई भी पैसे नहीं है, कभी-कभी माँ-बाप नहीं होते हैं, भाई-बहन नहीं होते हैं, घर नहीं होता है, उनका कुछ उनके लिए कुछ करेंगे नहीं, तो वो ज़िंदगी में आगे कैसे बढ़ेंगे? तो ज़्यादातर लोग हाँ, हाँ बोलते हैं लेकिन कुछ करते नहीं हैं। ठीक है, वो बोलते हैं हाँ, 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 ये बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट है, ज़रूरी है, ये हमको करना चाहिए, पैसे डालने चाहिए, फिर वो कुछ करते नहीं हैं।
सही
और
है।
सिर्फ़ डेमोक्रेट्स नहीं, सिर्फ़ रिपब्लिकन्स नहीं, सब खुद की आगे करने की चाहते हैं वो लोग। तो मैं सोचा कि मैं अगर खुद चले जाऊँ और मैं ये पोज़ीशन में आ जाऊँ, तो मैं ये बच्चों के लिए कुछ कर सकूँ, क्योंकि मुझे
हुँ,
पता है उनकी उनकी पोज़ीशन में होना कैसा है, क्योंकि मैं भी उनकी पोज़ीशन में था, उनकी जगह में था मैं, तो मुझे समझ में आता है कि क्या मुश्किलात होते हैं और
सही है।
क्या करना चाहिए। तो उसके बाद मैं सोचा कि मैं क्या करूँ? मैं अभी तक मैं ऑर्गनाइज़ेशन में काम करते रहूँ या मैं ऑफ़िस के लिए इलेक्शन के लिए चले जाऊँ, मुझे पता नहीं था, लेकिन मैं फिर इधर सोचा, मैं बोला दोनों कर सकता हूँ मैं। तो मैं अभी काम करता हूँ ऑर्गनाइज़ेशन में और दूसरे लोग जो पूरे टेक्सास में रहते हैं, मैं उनको एंगेज करता हूँ, उनको कैपिटल लेकर आता हूँ, उनको सिटी हॉल लेकर आता हूँ, उनको वाशिंगटन डीसी लेकर आता हूँ, ताकि वो लोग भी उनकी आवाज़ अ, निकाल सकते हैं, उनकी आवाज़, ताकि वो जो कांग्रेस वाले हैं, जो लॉ मेकर्स हैं, जो सिटी काउंसिल मेंबर्स हैं, तो उनको उनकी आवाज़ भी आ जाए ना। तो उसके बाद मैं बोला कि मैं ये जो स्कूल बोर्ड है, जिसकी अथॉरिटी जो है, जिसके हमारे स्कूल डिस्ट्रिक्ट जो है, हमारे पास 50,000 स्टूडेंट्स हैं, हमारे पास 60 स्कूल्स हैं और हमारे पास 3-4 हज़ार टीचर्स हैं। हम हम हमने कभी एक मुसलमान नहीं देखा है, हमने कोई पाकिस्तानी नहीं देखा है इधर इस बोर्ड पे, लेकिन हमारे डिस्ट्रिक्ट में 20-22, 25% तो साउथ एशियंस हैं, इंडियन,
हाँ,
पाकिस्तानी लोग।
देसी लोग, सही
तो
है।
तो हमारे कोई रिप्रेजेंटेशन नहीं था।
वाह!
और मैं सोचा कि मैं अगर आ जाऊँ तो मैं इस इस ज़माने में मैं स्कूल गया हूँ, मुझे समझ में आता है कि आजकल के बच्चों को क्या होता है, क्या मुसीबत होते हैं, क्या क्या कि किस रिसोर्सेज़ की ज़रूरत पड़ती है। इतना सब मुझे पता है, तो मैं बोला कि अगर मैं इस पोज़ीशन में आ जाऊँ, तो मैं दूसरी बच्चों की मदद कर सकूँ। तो मैंने शुरू किया, मैं लोगों से बात करने किया, मैं बोला मैं 7 साल से ये काम कर रहा हूँ, मेरा बहुत पैशन है, मुझे पता है कि ये क्या करने का है, मेरी खुद मुश्किलात मुझे पता है कि ये मेरे मेंटल हेल्थ के साथ क्या हुआ, मेरे स्कूल के अंदर क्या हुआ, तो मुझे ये सब पता है, जिसके बारे में सिर्फ़ मेरा नहीं है, ज़्यादातर बच्चों जो मेरे जनरेशन में हैं, उनके पास भी ये चीज़ें हुए हैं। तो मुझे पता था कि मैं अकेले नहीं हूँ इसमें। तो मेरा नाम डाला मैंने और मैं बोला कि शायद मैं थोड़ी लोगों की मदद कर सकूँ और अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह मेरे कितने लोगों मेरे पीछे आए हैं और सपोर्ट कर रहे हैं मुझे हमारी कम्युनिटी से, हमारी कम्युनिटी के बाहर से और मैं बहुत ग्रेटफुल हूँ कि ये सब इतना आगे बढ़ा हूँ 7 साल के बाद और मेरे बस यकीन है अभी कि मैं इलेक्ट हो जाऊँ और सब कम्युनिटी की बात सुनूँ कि ये मेरे लिए नहीं है, ये पूरी कम्युनिटी के लिए है, ये पूरी देसी कम्युनिटी के लिए है, ये पूरी मुस्लिम कम्युनिटी के लिए है, ये हमारे लिए है। ये मेरे बारे में नहीं है, ये मेरे वैल्यूज़, मेरे आइडियाज़ के बारे में है, जो हम सब शेयर करते हैं, हमारे सब वैल्यूज़ हैं। तो इंशाल्लाह अभी नवंबर में इलेक्शन आएगा और 3 तारीख को और फिर उस
नवंबर की तीसरी तारीख पे है ना?
नवंबर की तीसरी तारीख को और इंशाल्लाह उसके 3 हफ्ते बाद मैं आ जाऊँगा ऑफ़िशियल ऑफ़िस में और
इंशाल्लाह, हाँ।
और फिर उधर से 4 साल के लिए मैं खिदमत करूँगा सब।
नहीं तो बड़ी अच्छी बात है। आप सो फार जैसे कितनी देर से आप रन कर रहे हैं इलेक्शन में? और दूसरा इसके बाद जो सवाल है कि आपको सो फार जैसे कौन-सी जैसे इंटरेस्टिंग चीज़ें हुई हैं? जैसे जो चीज़ें हो सकता है आप एक्सपेक्ट नहीं कर रहे थे सो फार रन करने के प्रोसेस में?
अभी अभी कौन से महीना है ये? अगस्त में आए हैं हम।
जी, जी।
म- मार्च में शुरू किया, तो 5 महीने हुए हैं ऐसे कुछ।
हुँ।
और पहले मैं शुरू किया, मुझे कुछ पता नहीं था, मैं कभी ऐसे कुछ किया नहीं हूँ ना, तो मुझे पता नहीं था कि मैं
हाँ,
लोगों से पैसे मांग रहा हूँ, लोगों से
हाँ, तो ज़रूरी है।
वक्त मांग रहा हूँ, ये सब मुझे पता नहीं था कि ये इतना, मुझे पता था लेकिन मुझे करना नहीं था।
सही है।
मुझे पता है कि मैं वक्त के लिए पूछूंगा, वोट के लिए पूछूंगा, ये सब लेकिन पैसे पैसे के लिए पूछना बहुत बहुत जरूरी है, लेकिन बहुत मुश्किल है।
हुँ।
तो ये सब किया मैंने, और 5 महीने के बाद मेरा थोड़ा आदत भी हो गया है कि मैं बात करता हूँ। फिर उसके बाद में बोलता हूँ, जो भी होवे, $5 होवे, $10 होवे, $15 जो भी होवे, ये
हाँ।
एक एक करके ज्यादा बढ़ जाता है। तो मैं अभी अभी अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह, मेरा अभी डेडलाइन आया था, फंड रेजिंग का पहली डेडलाइन आई थी, और मैं 25,000 मैंने रेज किया है।
वाह! माशाल्लाह, बड़ी बात है। राउंड रॉक ऐसे स्कूल बोर्ड लोकल इलेक्शन में बहुत बड़ी बातें हैं।
स्कूल बोर्ड इलेक्शन में बहुत बड़ी बात है। और जो मेरे अपोनेंट है, एक ही अपोनेंट है मेरे अभी तक, उसने कुछ भी रेज नहीं किया है, वो कुछ भी जीरो। तो वो खुद अपने पैसे डालती है रेस में, वो खुद अपनी 6,000 डालेगी, लेकिन उसके अलावा कुछ कम्युनिटी से पैसे नहीं लेगी। और मैं सोचा कि मुझे ऐसे करना नहीं है। एक तो मेरे पास पैसे नहीं है ये करने का, और दूसरे, अगर पैसे होवे भी, कि ये क्या है कि कम्युनिटी से सपोर्ट नहीं चाहिए, कि कम्युनिटी, क्योंकि मुझे पता है कि अगर 100 लोग, 50 लोग, 150 लोग जो भी होवे, सब $5 $10 दे में, तो सबको लगता है कि ये कम्युनिटी की कैंपेन है ना, सिर्फ मेरी नहीं है।
एग्ज़ैक्टली, एग्ज़ैक्टली।
लेकिन अगर मैं अकेले सब पैसे डाल रहा हूँ, तो ये बस मेरे बारे में है ना, कि और किसी की
हाँ।
सपोर्ट नहीं है, और किसी की पार्टनरशिप नहीं है। तो ऐसे अच्छी चीजें होते हैं। और मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगता है जब भी मैं स्कूल के अंदर जाता हूँ, या मस्जिद के अंदर जाता हूँ, चर्च के अंदर जाता हूँ, जहाँ भी जाता हूँ, कम्युनिटी सेंटर के अंदर जाता हूँ, और लोग पूछते हैं कि आप क्यों कर रहे हैं ये बहुत मुश्किल काम है, पैसे नहीं मिलेंगे आपको, कोई
सही है।
तंग नहीं है, और बहुत बहुत मुश्किल काम है, बहुत काम लगेगा, बहुत वक्त लगेगा, और 4 साल इधर रहने पड़ेगा आपको, आप यूनिवर्सिटी बाहर भी नहीं कर सकते, आपको इधर ही रहना पड़ेगा। मैं बोलता हूँ कि मुझे मुझे पता है कि नीचे होने का कैसा लगता है। मैं मैं उस पोजीशन में था, उस जगह में था, जो जिसमें सब लोग मेरे ऊपर थे,
हुँ।
पैसे, पावर में, खुशी में। तो मुझे पता है कि जो बच्चे अभी नीचे हैं, अभी खुश नहीं है, अभी उनके पास पैसे नहीं है, अभी उनके पास दोस्त नहीं है, मुझे पता है कि वो कैसा है, और मुझे पता है कि क्या करना चाहिए। तो आप छोड़ो के मुझे बाहर यूनिवर्सिटी के लिए जाना चाहिए, बाहर पैसे पैसे खर्च करना चाहिए मॉल में जाके, और ये सब बस वक्त गुजारने के लिए। तो मैं बोला नहीं, मैं खुद के लिए नहीं करूंगा, ये मेरी जिंदगी में मेरा ये एक गोल है, जिसकी दूसरे लोगों की मदद करने का है। कुरान में भी लिखा है कि जब भी एक आदमी की मदद करते हो, तो ऐसे कि पूरे पूरे 1,000 लोग,
इंसानियत, हाँ।
पूरी इंसानियत की मदद किया है आपने। तो मेरा गोल ये है कि पूरी इंसानियत के लिए मैं कुछ करूं, जैसे मैं जब भी इस वर्ल्ड से निकलूं, कि इस वर्ल्ड थोड़े से बेहतर होवे, जब से मैं आया। तो ये मेरा गोल है। और एक बात ये है कि जब भी मैं स्कूल के अंदर जाता हूँ, और वो लोग पूछते हैं कि क्यों कर रहे हो, और मैं बताता हूँ, फिर वो भी बताते हैं कि हमारा भी ये हुआ था, कि हमारा भी ये था, लेकिन हम बात नहीं करते हैं उस बारे में। तो मैं बोलता क्यों, और वो बोलते कोई समझता नहीं है, कोई मुझसे पूछता नहीं है कि मेरा भी मेंटल हेल्थ का ये हुआ था, मेरा भी बुलिंग का ये हुआ था, मेरा भी रेसिज्म का ये हुआ था,
और
लेकिन
स्कूल ने कोई मदद नहीं की या डिस्ट्रिक्ट ने कोई मदद
कोई
नहीं
मदद
की।
नहीं करता किसी ने। तो मैं जब भी उनसे बात करता हूँ, मैं बोलता हूँ कि मैं इसीलिए ये कर रहा हूँ, क्योंकि मुझे पता है कि आपको ये हुआ है, आपके बच्चों को ये हुआ है, और आपके नवासे नवासे को होगा। ये होते रहेगा जब तक हम रोकेंगे नहीं। तो इसलिए मैं ये करता हूँ।
चलिए, बहुत माशा अच्छा लगा आपसे बात करके, बहुत आपका इंस्पायरिंग कैंपेन मैसेज है और इंशाल्लाह आपको इसमें कामयाबी होगी। तो अभी आपको बताऊँगा कि हमको पिच कर रहे हैं कि आपने फंड रेज़िंग आप कैसे आपकी मदद कर सकते हैं ना, उसमें वोटिंग होगी, फंड रेज़िंग होगी, आप बताएँ कैसे वोट दे सकते हैं, कैसे फंड रेज़ कर सकते हैं आपके लिए?
वोटिंग की तो बहुत ज़रूरत है, अभी इलेक्शन नवंबर की 3 तारीख को होगी, लेकिन अर्ली वोटिंग जो है अक्टूबर की 20 तारीख पे शुरू होगी 19 तारीख तक। 19 तारीख को शुरू होगी और 30 तारीख तक हो जाएगी और 30 तारीख तक होगी और फिर उसके बाद वोट चाहिए होगी और वोट जो है पूरे राउंड रॉक में, नॉर्थ वेस्ट ऑस्टिन में, जैसे मैं ऑस्टिन में रहता हूँ, मैं राउंड रॉक में नहीं
जी।
रहता हूँ। तो नॉर्थ वेस्ट ऑस्टिन में, पूरे राउंड रॉक में और सीडर पार्क में भी। तो जो भी लोग उधर रहते हैं मेरे लिए वोट कर सकते हैं और अगर आप नहीं रहते उधर तो आपके दोस्त को बोलें, आपके भाई को बोलें, आपके जो जो भी हो आपकी ज़िंदगी में उनको बोले कि वोट देने का है और कुछ इतनी देर नहीं लगती है, आधा घंटा लगता है लेकिन बहुत ज़रूरत है। और सिर्फ मेरे लिए नहीं, ऊपर जेम्स टैलरी है, जीना हीना होसा है, ये सब लोग, मैं तो बिल्कुल नीचे आऊँगा, लेकिन ऊपर से नीचे तक वोट करने का है। और उसके बाद मेरे वेबसाइट पे जाएँ और जो भी आप दे सकते हैं $5, $10, $20 वो सब एक-दूसरे के ऊपर बहुत मदद करती है। तो ये मेरा हुक्म है कि आप सब ये करें क्योंकि सबको पता है कि मैं प्रोग्रेसिव हूँ, कि ये मेरे सब वैल्यूज़ ये हैं। लेकिन जब भी लोग वोट करने जाते हैं, उस पे लिखा नहीं होता है कि मैं ये डेमोक्रेट हूँ, ये प्रोग्रेसिव हूँ, जो भी है वे। उनको पता नहीं है, सिर्फ़ मेरा नाम लिखा होगा और उनको पता नहीं है ये अयान कौन है। तो इसीलिए मुझे पैसे की ज़रूरत है ताकि मैं एजुकेट कर सकूँ,
सही है।
ताकि मैं एड्स करूँ सोशल मीडिया पे, टीवी पे कि सबको पता चले कि अयान जो है ये प्रोग्रेसिव है। तो ताकि वो जब भी वोट करने जावे तो उनको पता है कि ये अयान है, मैं उसको वोट
कोशिश भी कर रहे हैं। तो आखिरी सवाल मेरा ये है कि जैसे आप माशाल्लाह उर्दू अच्छी बोलते हैं, कैसे आपने यहाँ पे पैदा होने के बावजूद इतना उसको जारी रखा है? आपके पेरेंट्स ने क्या किया था? आप खुद ही क्या करते हैं इसको प्रैक्टिस करने के लिए?
देखो तो मैं इधर पैदा हुआ था जैसे आपने बोला, लेकिन हर साल हम 1 महीने के लिए वापस पाकिस्तान जाते हैं और उधर नाना-नानी होते हैं और मेरे खाला लोग होते हैं और उन सब से तो उर्दू में ही बात करते हैं। पाकिस्तान में मस्जिद जाते हैं, जमाखाने जाते हैं, उधर तो उर्दू में ही बात करते हैं और किसी को इंग्लिश तो पता ही नहीं है उनको। तो इसीलिए मुझे इतना अच्छा लगता है कि मैं अमेरिका में रह के फिर भी मैं पाकिस्तानी हूँ। ये मेरा घर है, लेकिन वो भी मेरा घर है और वो मेरे
हाँ।
लोग, मेरा कल्चर है और मैं उधर से मैं लेकर आया हूँ इधर और मैं कभी छोड़ूँगा नहीं। तो ये वो मेरा है, लेकिन मेरे अभी 2 साल हुए हैं, 3 साल हुए हैं, जिसकी मेरी नानी के इंतकाल हुआ है और मेरे नानी जो थे वो मेरे सब पूरी दुनिया में सबसे फ़ेवरेट इंसान थे, पूरी दुनिया
हाँ।
में। तो अभी वो चले गए हैं, तो अभी कम लोग हैं जिससे मैं उर्दू में बात कर सकता हूँ। तो इसीलिए मेरा थोड़ा ऊपर-नीचे हो रहा है अभी। पहले तो बहुत ही अच्छा होता था, पहले तो 24 घंटे मैं उर्दू में ही बात करता था और अभी मेरा यकीन है कि अभी आपसे बात करने के बाद मैं मेरे मम्मी-डैडी, भाई से भी ज़्यादा उर्दू में बात कर सकूँ क्योंकि मेरी नानी है उसमें याद आ
चलिए, थैंक यू फॉर शेयरिंग दैट। इंशाल्लाह जारी भी रख सकते हैं। डेफिनिटली बहुत जिनके साथ बात करते हैं उसका बहुत इसमें दखल होता है ना, तो आई होप यू आर एबल टू कीप इट अप। और फिर कोई ऐसे उर्दू के गाने, मूवीज़ ऐसी कोई चीज़ हैं जो आप एन्जॉय करते हैं, पसंद करते हैं? इनमें से कोई चीज़ है जो आपके ज़हन में आती है अभी?
तो आजकल के बॉलीवुड सॉन्ग्स तो बहुत अच्छे होते हैं नाचने वाले होते हैं, तो वो सब तो सबको पता है, लेकिन पुराने वाले भी मुझे बहुत अच्छे लगते हैं। मुझे एक वो नादिया हसन और क्या नाम है
नाज़िया हसन है, डिस्को दीवाने और
हाँ, हाँ, हाँ,
बूम बूम।
और आँखें मिलाने वाले, वो बहुत अच्छा है। वो मुझे
हाँ, 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 क्लासिक्स मैन, बिफोर योर टाइम।
या और वो क्लासिक जो है दिल दिल पाकिस्तान, वो मैं रोज़ सुनता हूँ।
कोर्स, हाँ, हाँ।
जुनैद जमशेद के आज तक मैं कपड़े पहनता हूँ, उनके गाने भी
हाँ, हाँ, हाँ। माशा बहुत टैलेंटेड थे वो।
बिल्कुल।
तो चलें, यहाँ बहुत मज़ा आया आपके साथ उर्दू में ही बातचीत करके, और वो इसको भी पोस्ट करूँगा हमारे इंटरव्यू के बाद। तो बहुत शुक्रिया, इंशाल्लाह फिर से बात होगी,
इंशाल्लाह।
और अगला इंटरव्यू करेंगे जब आप जीतेंगे इंशाल्लाह, ठीक है?
इंशाल्लाह, इंशाल्लाह, इंशाल्लाह। शुक्रिया।